Well, as we slowly wait for this copyright strike from BG to settle, and I lawyer up to fill out this appeal, we might as well cover the news in a sloppy fashion. Dreamcast guy style, I guess you could say. Apparently, we got news that Concord did not cost as much as people online were claiming it did to be produced. It was a gross exaggeration. It was actually more. Believe it or not, we were way off on our numbers here to an insane degree. It almost seems unrealistic. For those of you who don't know, Colin Moriarty put out a clip talking about Concord, where he spoke allegedly to a former developer there, someone who actually worked on making this game, and the information behind the scenes will leave you blown away.
The Concord situation somehow got significantly worse. Highly recommend listening to all 9 minutes of this.
9 minutes? Okay, whatever. I got time to kill.
And someone who worked on Concord reached out to me, and I verified who this person was and went through all of that and talked to this person extensively, for a long time. Ooh. And got some, I think, interesting information that I can share about Concord. And I think people will be interested about it. The reason that I wanted to talk about it is because some of the assumptions that I had made about the game were dead wrong, as far as how much it cost and how much Sony really lost on it. So the big thing that you really need to know here about this is that Concord cost about $400 million to make.
Oh my God.
And
oh my God. Hold on, let me grab my bong. Oh. No way. No. No way. No. 400 million? I don't know what to say. There are AAA games that never met $400 million budget. There are complete asset flips that required little to nothing but 400 million. How much did Sony invest in DEI propaganda? This is absolutely insane. 400 million. I thought 100 million was too much. I thought 200 million was almost criminal, but 400 million, there's a money laundering scheme going on here, and you can't convince me otherwise. There's just no way. No fucking way. We need all the accounting information on that product. Every dime spent, we need to trace. There is some very suspicious stuff going on with PlayStation Studios. It doesn't show in the budget, not even close. What were they thinking? As James Rolfe would say, that is money that could have gone to multiple multiplayer games produced at once. This is insane. What? That is nearly $500 million. Nearly. How much did it cost to produce Grand Theft Auto? Let me Google that right now. Well, let's see. GTA 5 budget. 265 million is what it costs to make GTA 5. Unbelievable. This has to be a gross exaggeration. Colin's info can't be right. There's no way. Sony would never burn money like that, would they? I mean, Sony has marketed and advertised video games that never existed or came out a decade later and were terrible. They do have a history of that. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody allocated resources into the wrong product, because I guess they thought to themselves, the future is DEI. This is what people want out on the market. This is a Sony who is so out of touch. They've completely forgotten what it is that people purchase their console for to begin with. It's not for f***ing boss girl dude chick video games. Somewhere along the line, when Sony moved their headquarters to California, this shit flooded their video games. They became a whole other entity. No longer the Sony that used to make God of War games where banging hot chicks was how you healed and got points. That's over. They don't want a single bit of skin shown from any of their women, unless it's Abby, because what she had barely qualified as tits. I don't care what anybody on social media says about people not caring for these things. That's bullshit. It would reflect in the sales, wouldn't it? These would be smash hits, the highest grossing games, but they're not. Nobody wants this. This modern audience just doesn't exist. Look, Microsoft blows me away with their fumbles all the time, especially Halo Infinite, but this is the greatest flop in video game history. 400 million, gone.
When the game had already had $200 million spent on it and was basically in an alpha form in quarter one of 2023, from that point until the game launched, Sony spent another $200 million on it. The scuttlebutt behind the scenes about Concord is that the game was in a laughable shape when it was shown. And basically, like, when the alpha was ready to go and they were kind of being like, we're ready to kind of get moving towards getting this thing out in the next year or two, it was in such horrible shape that Sony felt like they needed to spend that much money again, so 200 plus 200, to get the game to the MVP status, not to the status of it being like a great game, to get it to just viability. And that at that time in quarter one 2023, there was nothing done. Like, a major expense was having to urgently outsource much of the game to other studios to finish building the game out. And that two fundamental things were not worked on at all up to the point in which the game was shown in alpha. Onboarding, nothing about that. No, like, there was nothing about how players get on, like how they make their character, all that kind of stuff, or, choose their character and get there, and monetization. Two very expensive, very specific and boutique things that happen to games like this. And so that's the first thing that I wanted to say, is that it's not only about the ongoing cost, which would be in the millions to keep the game going per month, but that the game cost about $400 million to make, soup to nuts. Sony put most of that money in, and it is not only so, because we had kind of said, like, this must be Sony's biggest loss ever on a game, and it is. It's the biggest game Sony's ever released from a budgetary standpoint, from the first party or second party.
Oh my God. This was their most expensive game ever released. What the This can't be real. I don't know if the info is honestly true or not, but go ahead and subscribe to Colin Moriarty and Sacred Symbols. I usually don't recommend pro PlayStation places, but the fact he's providing this info and not hiding it makes him significantly better than every other fanboy. This information is, wow, I'm taking time to process it right now. I'm reacting to it as I go. I'm not scripting this. I don't got time for scripts. I got a rave to go to later. I want to party it up. I'll be all over the dance floor, eat out, celebrating, knowing this disaster did not succeed. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't like to see Sony in this state. I want Sony to release good multiplayer games. Why? Because good games are always welcomed here on the PC platform. We deserve nothing less than the best, and so do people who buy the console. It was a huge financial gamble, $400 million to produce the game. That's not accounting for the marketing. Is that what I'm getting at? Jesus Christ. I guess what people were saying online about Sony shifting the loss of this game onto the consumers through the price raising of their products is true, because we're talking about a substantial amount of money. That's how much it cost them to produce this, but that's not including the cost of purchasing Firewalk, who never had anything to offer the company. I don't know why I'm so upset. How in the world do talentless people get to be funded so much just to ruin the gaming industry and ruin the company funding them? Like, Sony has every right to shut this fucking studio down. Fuck them. Sony made the right call. Fire every one of their asses. Get your money back, Sony. Sell them off to Embracer or something. Get rid of them.
Ever on a game, and it is. It's the biggest game Sony's ever released from a budgetary standpoint, from the first party or second party. So let that sink in. It's crazy. And it's totally unintuitive. There are games that are in development right now at Sony first and second party that are more expensive than this. But as of the games that have come out so far, so think about like Spider-Man 2 and so on and so forth. We know The Last of Us Part 2 cost $220 million. Spider-Man 3 is going to cost about $350 million. This game costs more than that. And they lost all of it. because they made no money. They made about $1 million gross revenue, and then they gave it all back. So this is a huge, multiple hundreds of millions of dollar loss.
What? You can't be serious. They were that invested. What did they see in the product? How is it that every single consumer out there, even the most toxic positive ones, knew this would be a monumental flop, but not billion-dollar Sony? It's making me question everything. I'm losing my mind here. I really wish I had a live audience to watch this with me right now, but I'm on short time. I don't have enough resources at the moment to edit a banger for you, but hopefully my most honest reaction to it is enough to get you to realize how crazy this is. Funding on that level for a video game.
Why did this happen? This game was heavily championed behind the scenes. Now we know this because Sony ended up, what's funny is that the game is presented in Q1 2023 as this, we're kind of getting towards the end, the game is nowhere near being done, it's in a horrible position, and then Sony buys the team. The idea behind this was, and the term apparently verbatim had been used, that Concord is the future of PlayStation. That they had such major ambition for this game that it was referred to internally as a Star Wars-like project for Sony. It can be repeatedly revisited over and over and over again, not only in cross-media, but in what we were seeing. We've already kind of seen little bits of it. So the weekly story vignettes that they were going to release, and then, of course, the inclusion in Amazon's Secret Levels anthology, that's like just scratching the surface of it. Ironically, the game was codenamed Chaos behind the scenes. And a major thing about the game is that there was, and I think we can kind of get this vibe from just the nature of the people making it and kind of the way the game reads and all that, a toxic positivity vibe. You weren't allowed to say anything, apparently internally, about this game. About how, like, something's wrong with it, character designs are not right, and so on and so forth. They really, truly believe this was Herman Hulst's baby, apparently. And he internally was himself a massive champion of the game. So it's not that, so the reason I'm telling you all of this, it's some interesting information, of course, but it's that I had said, when people were like, Concord lost $200 million, now people were pulling that money out because that's basically how much like some of the first party games like Ghost of Tsushima, The Last of Us Part 2, etc. kind of cost in that frame. And I was like, there's no way that it cost that much. I was saying like, it cost 9 figures probably, like low $100 million, but there's no way it cost $200 million. No, it cost $400 million. So, and I am totally solid on this source, by the way.
Oh my god! This is how infectious the DEI climate/culture thing is. Look at how it pollutes video game development. It is cancerous. It has to go. Imagine not being able to speak your mind and tell people something is shit when it's clearly shit. We rely heavily on criticism to guide us and navigate us through a project. If your shit stinks, it's very important you know. You don't want to be walking around with caca on your ass. I would say that's more than enough info. I mean, Colin, look, I don't completely trust your sources, but until somebody comes out to deny all these claims, I'm going to believe it. It's so easily debunked. We'll see. This information is blowing my mind. It's kind of making me really sad for the future of gaming. Both Microsoft and Sony overly invested in this. Well, when I say overly invested, they should have never invested in this DEI market. It was non-existent from the beginning. Nobody has ever made a dime trying to appeal to the woke mob. It doesn't work. They don't have bread. Appeal to people with money. Make something people want to buy. It's simply unbelievable. There is no excuse. There is no defense for this project. Any single PlayStation fanboy online that stood up for this is the problem with gaming. They are the reason things are turning to shit. Oh my god. I still can't believe it. Anyway, I rarely do these raw reactions, but I figured there was no other way since I'm, again, limited on my time. But now the world knows. Now the world has a better idea of what to expect from gaming budgets. There was an entire lineup, and Herman Hulst was the one who was the most enthusiastic about this product. This is what happens when you hire people who don't play video games. The future is bleak, and it's making me depressed. Oh my god, I always wanted PlayStation to put games here, but if this is the result, then keep it on console. We'll call it a day. like, comment, share, and subscribe if you so choose to. That being said, see you in the next video.
Fritango sucks ass.